Hello friends, today we are going to learn about measurement. So we will read a book together. How Big is a Foot? Written and illustrated by Rolf Meiler. Look at that picture. The king who thinks of a lovely present to give his wife, the queen, for her birthday. So he decided to gift a bed for the queen. He measured the queen's length and width using his foot, which is 6 feet long and 3 feet wide, and ordered to make a bed. When the apprentice, this person, made the bed measuring 6 feet long and 3 feet wide using his foot, the queen didn't fit in that bed. So I want you to figure out why the bed was so small for the queen. Why the measurement was misleading. Let's start reading. So here is our book, How Big is a Foot? Before we start reading, let's learn some words. I want you to repeat after me. Measure, the act of determining size, capacity, or quantity. The boy is measuring his height. Wide. Let's repeat after me. Wide, measured from side to side. This hand is 2 inches wide. Long, measuring a great distance from end to end. This pencil is 6 inches long. Now let's start reading the book. Once upon a time, there lived a king and his wife, the queen. They were a happy couple, for they had everything in the world. However, when the queen's birthday came near, the king had a problem. What could he give to someone who had everything? The king thought, and he thought, and he thought, until suddenly he had an idea. He would give the queen a bed. The queen did not have a bed because at that time beds had not been invented. So even someone who had everything did not have a bed. The king called the prime minister and asked him to please have a bed made. The prime minister called the chief carpenter and asked him to please have a bed made. The chief carpenter called the apprentice and told him to make a bed. How big is a bed? Asked the apprentice, who didn't know because at that time nobody had ever seen a bed. How big is a bed? The carpenter asked the prime minister. A good question, said the prime minister, and he asked the king, how big is the bed? What do you think? How big is a bed? How would you measure the size of the bed? Yes, you are right. You could measure it so many ways. You could use so many objects to measure the bed. So the king thought and he thought and he thought until suddenly he had an idea. The bed must be big enough to fit the queen. Why do you think the bed must be big enough for the queen? Excellent thinking. I love your detailed description. The bed must be big enough for the queen so that the queen will fit into the bed. The king called the queen. He told her to put on her new pajamas and told her to lie on the floor. The king took off his shoes and with his back feet, walked carefully around the queen. He counted that. 1, 2, 3. 3 feet wide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 feet long. The bed must be 3 feet wide and 6 feet long to be big enough to fit the queen, including the crown, which the queen sometimes liked to wear to sleep. The king said thank you to the queen and told the prime minister, who told the chief carpenter, who told the apprentice. The bed must be 3 feet wide and 6 feet long to be big enough to fit the queen, including the crown, which she sometimes liked to wear to sleep. The apprentice said thank you and took off his shoes. And with his little feet he measured 3 feet wide and, yes, you are right, 6 feet long, and made a bed to fit the queen. When the king saw the bed, he thought it was beautiful. He could not wait for the queen's birthday. Do you think the queen will fit in this bed? Why? Great. Let's see what happened next. Instead, he called the queen at once and told her to put on her new pajamas. Then he brought out the bed and told the queen to try it. But the bed was much too small for the queen. The king was so angry that he immediately called the prime minister, who called the chief carpenter, who called the jailer, who threw the apprentice into jail. The apprentice was so unhappy. Why was the bed too small for the queen? He thought and he thought and he thought until suddenly he had an idea. A bed that was 3 king's feet wide and 6 king's feet long was naturally bigger than a bed that was 3 apprentice feet wide and 6 apprentice feet long. I can make a bed to fit the queen if I know the size of the king's foot. He explained this to the jailer, who explained it to the chief carpenter, who explained it to the prime minister, who explained it to the king, who was much too busy to go to jail. Instead, the king took off one shoe and called a famous sculptor. The sculptor made an exact marble copy of the king's foot. This was then sent to the jail. The apprentice took the marble copy of the king's foot, and with it he measured 3 feet wide and 6 feet long, and built a bed to fit the queen. 3 feet wide and, right, 6 feet long. The bed was ready just in time for the queen's birthday. The king called the queen and told her to put on her new pajamas. Then he brought out the new bed and told the queen to try it. The queen got into bed and the bed fit the queen perfectly, including the crown, which she sometimes liked to wear to sleep. It was without a doubt the nicest gift that the queen had ever received. The king was very happy. He immediately called the apprentice from jail and made him a royal prince. He ordered a big parade, and all the people came out to cheer the little apprentice prince. And forever after, anyone who wanted to measure anything used a copy of the king's foot. And when someone said, "My bed is 6 feet long and 3 feet wide," everyone knew exactly how big it was. The end. So now I want you to figure out some questions that I'm going to ask. I want you to figure out the answers. Let's see. Why was the bed so small for the queen? The queen's foot was so small. Is A. B. The king's foot size was bigger than the apprentice's foot. C. The prime minister's foot size was bigger than the queen's foot. D. The king's foot size was smaller than the apprentice's foot. You have 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see the answer. The correct answer is the king's foot size was bigger than the apprentice's foot. You are right. Let's see the next one. Why did the apprentice ended up in jail? The apprentice made a chair instead of a bed. The apprentice made a beautiful small bed, but the queen didn't fit. C. The apprentice doesn't know how to make a bed. D. The king doesn't like the bed. You have 5 seconds to answer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see the correct answer. The correct answer is the apprentice made a beautiful small bed, but the queen didn't fit. Next question. How long was the queen's bed? A. 4 feet long. B. 5 feet long. C. 6 feet long. D. 7 feet long. You have 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The correct answer is 6 feet long. Yes, you are right. Next question. Do we all have the same sized foot? Yes or no? 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The answer is no. Excellent job. You are doing great. Let's do the next one. Why was the measurement misleading? A. The measurement was misleading because the queen needs an 8 feet long and 2 feet wide bed. B. The measurement was misleading because the apprentice made a bed that is 5 feet long and 4 feet wide. C. The measurement was misleading because the king and queen were so unhappy. D. The measurement was misleading because the king and the apprentice's foot sizes are not the same. You have 5 seconds to answer. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the correct answer is D. The measurement was misleading because the king and the apprentice's foot sizes are not the same. Excellent job. So before we finish reading, I want you to think how you can measure things around you, such as a table, computer, door, pencil, and even your notebook using your own foot. While you measure, I also want you to think, what if other people measure those objects? Will they get same result? Thank you for reading with me. Happy measuring!